What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, your personal academic mentor, coming at you to be able to answer a question that I got today that I think that maybe some folks may be interested in hearing about, maybe some folks not, but stick around anyway. We're going to have a good time. But we'll keep this one nice and brief. So today's question was, what's it like to be the youngest professor in your department? Now, I wasn't sure if this was kind of a more general question or if this was a more personal one, and I'll explain why in a moment. In terms of being the youngest professor in your department, though, keep in mind that the word professor means different things depending on where you live. In the United States, for example, somebody who you could have your master's, but you're teaching at a university, you could still call that person professor, right? Versus if you're in the UK, for example, or let's say that you're at Oxford, where you have a much more rigid structure where professor is the top position, you would never call somebody who's, a professor, a doctor, and you would never call somebody in a lower status who is a doctor a professor. You wouldn't do it. In the US, though, I can tell you from personal experience that if I know that somebody who, I've never been taught by somebody with a master's, but, for me, everybody with the doctorate, I would call them doctor such and such. Other times I'd call them professor such and such. It was really interchangeable for me, like I think it probably is for many of you as well, especially those of you in North America. But over in the UK, certainly in other countries that I've lectured in, for example, in Switzerland, they called me Herr Professor Dr. Singh, right? Which is the longest title I've ever got. It used to be on my door when I used to work for the government there. I remember giving a keynote 2 years ago in Australia, and I was, Professor Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, or down South Africa a little bit earlier, the exact same year, same thing. I had other people who were giving talks at the same conference. It was Doctor, and then it was me, and it was Professor. Right? And these other doctors, they were also professors insofar as individuals who teach at the advanced level, at the graduate level, but they hadn't reached that level yet of being a professor. Okay? So because of that, I can take this question kind of two ways. The first one is, what's it like being the youngest kind of faculty member in your department who's either tenure track, you can be a research professor, you can be a clinical professor, but the youngest faculty member in your department who's not a postdoc. And the other thing could be if you're literally a professor, meaning that you are a tenured full professor, as they call it. Okay. Now, I had this happen to me in both cases. So somebody Googled me the other day and sent me an email about it. So yes, it's true. I was the youngest tenured full professor in the country of Norway when I was 27, right? A weird thing about me is that I've never been assistant professor anywhere. My first tenure track position, I went right in at associate. I got really lucky. And then worked my butt off for several years. And then I ended up getting my full professorship in Norway. And at the time of all the universities in the country, I was the youngest tenured full professor. But I was also just the youngest faculty member in my department who was actually, lecturing, actually teaching. And so the thing is, I have a few things to say about this. Number one is that, yes, everybody's going to think that you've got a baby face in these things. You're going to have grad students and postdocs who are literally older than you are, even though you're at a higher level. You will also have individuals who are significantly older than you are, maybe, 20, 30 years older than you are, who are more junior than you are in the department. Now, perception is reality at the end of the day. In my opinion, when it comes to these things, you should let the work speak for itself. Let your work speak for itself. To all of my mentees, if you're interested in getting mentored by me, you can set up a one-on-one coaching session with me via the website below, and we can get that started. But the key here, more than anything else, guys, is that you need to understand that you need to be a pleasure. Be a pleasure to work with, be a pleasure to be around, be a pleasure in all regards. And just because you treat other people well, you need to understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to treat you well. But you have really, no responsibility, but you have no control over how other people treat you. All you have control over is how you react, right? And my recommendation is always to respond as opposed to react, if you know what I'm saying. And at the same time, to treat other people well in general. And you can never expect that back in return, but I can tell you right now, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? Positive karma, right? Repays those types of actions. Because it's the right thing to do, right? but you should expect people to talk behind your back. I mean, I wish that these things weren't true, but it is. Some people are going to be amazed by you. They're going to see you as a rising star, and you want to make sure to spend time with those people, especially the ones who have nothing to gain from you, but just really believe in you. Those people are very few and far between, but if you can identify them, I've had 2 or 3 in my life. You always should be immensely loyal to those people, because of course there will also be people who think you're a rising star who just kind of want to take advantage of that, and they'll want to take advantage of you and your name and claiming to everybody that they know you very well, or that you and them are working on a bunch of projects together when you're not. All these things have happened to me. And then you're going to have what happened to me as well, which is essentially where, people are going to talk about you behind your back. And this can be really painful when those people are folks that you really respect. These are folks that maybe you want to be like, or you love their research work and so forth. At the end of the day, academia is extraordinarily cliquey. It's one of the major cons of an academic career. If you have not watched my videos yet on this channel about the main pros and the main cons, there's 2 videos, one for each, of academia. I recommend that you do that at some point in the near future, maybe even today after watching this video. But that's what I would say. That's what being the youngest professor is like. You have this kind of dual role as being kind of the next big thing. People will project that identity onto you, right? And yes, you should always try to check your ego, because at the end of the day, nobody is overly important. The biggest blessing that I ever gave myself was giving myself permission to not be a big deal at the end of the day. Probably I've gotten more accomplished simply because of having that mindset. What I always ask people is, what was the first name of your great-great-great-grandfather? And unless that person was really famous, or, you're John Smith the Fourth or whatever it is, people usually don't know that person's first name. And so because of that, and that wasn't that many years ago, right? I mean, that number of generations back, great, not that long ago. But that's the thing, is that their name, probably what they did for a living, you probably don't know that either, unless they were really famous or something. All these things kind of go away with time, and if we can embrace that and recognize that we have a very short time on the planet and that we need to be caring about each other, helping each other. There's a great quote, which is something along the lines of, a man who has learned to plant trees with the full knowledge that he'll never get to enjoy their shade has started to understand the importance of life, right? And kind of what our purpose is here. And so that's the thing, right? Is, yes, people will project onto you maybe a hyperbolic sense of importance, but people will also project onto you a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy that is based on their own past, their own failures, and a lot of people in these cases can become exceptionally officious. If you don't know the word officious, it's my favorite word in the English language. Officious means offering advice where none was sought. Right? So this is something that you'll find all the time if you're really young. People are going to want to give you advice, and I always want you to remember that even though 99% of it may be total BS, always remember that there can still be 1% in there that's a tiny little nugget of gold, okay? Try to keep your eyes out for that. Don't listen to anybody giving you too much advice, because at the end of the day, oftentimes advice is kind of a form of nostalgia, right? It's a form of them looking back at their own lives and them, when I say pretending to care about you, I'm not saying that they don't, but it's they're giving their best advice, which is advice that they wish they had gotten when they were younger to avoid their own mistakes. So don't forget about that either, okay? But if you're the youngest, faculty member in your department, it can be a bit of a challenge, but it can also be a blessing, because never forget that when you're younger, nobody expects you to be really, really good. So if you've already proven yourself, especially if you've, I was 27 as a tenured full professor, if you've proven that you're really, really good, then it's something where you're in a really unique position, and you should try to leverage it however you can. Publish press releases. If you don't know how to do that, go to Publication Academy. We give you templates and show you exactly how to write them. Publication Academy, the website is www.publicationacademy.com. Write that out, book a session with me, we'll talk about how to do it. You need to leverage these things, because you won't always be the youngest person in the department, so we need to make sure to be able to get the word out to be able to maximize your visibility as a thought leader in the field, and also to maximize your search engine optimization within your field. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time, and that's what it's like to be the youngest professor in your department. Have a great day. Peace.